de l'Université de Nantes. We will talk about Leibniz's dynamics and physical-mathematical science.
Okay. So that's the last communication. Okay. And I'm going in a labyrinthic work, this of Leibniz. And as shown by David Rabouin, it's a trap. But it's a trap, but let's go, we have to go. So it's about the Leibniz dynamic and physico-mathematical science. It is said that mathematization of sciences of nature began in the 17th century with the Galilean program. But in reality, philosophers and historians have supported the most diverse position on these beginnings. That in reality, it was much more ancient. One only has to read Archimedes or even mechanics of Aristotle. That such an association would have been elaborated more recently by Varignon or Fourier or Laplace or Einstein, von Neumann. If we wish to analyze association, application of mathematics to the natural sciences, the debate on origin doesn't make much sense. We are dealing with an enormous work program of description of the roles of mathematics in physical theories and more recently in biological theories. They play varying roles, both minor and major. We all know that this analysis is complex, but it's not a problem in itself. The problem of the origin of mathematization arises if we suspect something else. If we think that one time a physics was born which not only was mathematized but also was a physics of mathematics. So if that is what's on our mind, we must seek this moment the alchemist of ontology succeeded in transmutation. The day the physical object and or mathematical objects have become physico-mathematical objects. This new essence led to a new science with various names. This was already what Beckmann wanted to convince Descartes. That's what it is said was proclaiming Galileo. That's what Newton and many others claimed after him. Scholars or philosophers have their diverse patterns of apparition of this new science. According to some of them, the existence of intelligible matter, as Aristotle, was a necessary condition. To some others, the formal mastering of the infinite, or the development of analysis, or some special mathematical formalization, like matrix, for example. I am wondering if it's not a controversy that have no substance. If the emergence of physico-mathematical science is not chimerical as conversion of lead into gold. The thesis of the existence not only of mathematized physics, but of physico-mathematical science as powerful defenders. As we know, Galileo announces a new science. Newton writes prefaces and scholars in this way. The general comments of historians assume the emergence of a powerful mathematical physics, which leads D'Alembert to conclude, like you said, finally Newton showed first what his predecessors had only seen. It's exactly the same quotation you gave. Okay? So, who really launched this new science? According to Plutarch, Archimedes already hesitated whether geometry could be inserted into mechanics or not. Newton, him, has no doubt. It's indeed very delicate to decide whether the Principia is a treatise of physics or a treatise of mathematics. According to Newton himself, it seems possible to take them for a mathematical one. Doesn't the title proclaim that it's about mathematical principles? The preface is also along the same lines. Nevertheless, the 8 definitions and the 3 laws which open the treaty are statements of physical nature. The quantity of matter, of movement, the forces, etc. They are soon followed by laws that concern the governance of natural phenomena. All this is physical. What is indisputable is the decisive presence of mathematics in rising physics, astronomy, dynamics, mechanics, etc., optics, etc. So whatever the philosophical and ontological positions that one will support, a comprehensive work program has been initiated for historians. Okay? How precisely do mathematical object and physical object combine? There are classical arguments in favor of an essential distinction separating mathematical objects and procedures and physical objects and procedures. This is a 2,000-year discussion of which the Pythagoreans, Plato, Aristotle, and their commentators have forged the basic arguments. Among them, we have to decide whether there is a science of things that change. It's an accomplishment of Aristotle, having held this possibility. However, according to him, application of maths doesn't work easily with regard to the science of animals, that of plants, elements, meteors, maybe mechanics. Another point has been roughly debated, that of the respective ontological dignity of mathematical and physical objects. Everyone grants a great value to mathematics for accuracy and rigor. It remains to be seen whether it's an advantage or a handicap when it comes to measure phenomena. Finally, the criterion of causal nature of demonstration must be addressed. This aspect has been very controversial too. From the 3rd century before Christmas onwards, we have some of the main concepts by means of which the philosophical position will be elaborated. Position concerning the nature of mathematical objects and procedures as compared with those of physics, and consequently concerning the nature of the possible relations between each other. I will mention in passing certain known episodes of this controversy. Geometrical optics, especially in the Middle Ages, Arabic and Latin. The latitudo formarum accomplishment in the 14th century. The great controversy over the certitudo mathematicarum in the Renaissance, etc. We should not think that the contestation of the thesis of the possible transmutation disappears with the success of a physics full of mathematics. We can mention Diderot, Buffon, the development of life sciences in the 18th and 19th century. Finally, we can just mention contemporary argument. Davis and Hersch, in their famous book, draw the following picture. We learn something. We learn something about the world by observing it and reflecting on what we see. Until we have observed, we have nothing to think about. In mathematics, however, we have knowledge of things that have never been observed and will never be observed. So my point will to consider a very remarkable contribution of Leibniz to this case, as he appears in his great treatise, unpublished in his lifetime, the Dynamica de Potentia. Leibniz develops in various texts a strong argumentation to erect an essential frontier between physics and mathematics. I have chosen and distributed a passage where the two ways of being are distinguished. From this passage you have in your hand, mathematics and phenomena are absolutely distinct in essence. The first are idealities, the latter are actualities. There is no possible mixing, transubstantiation, or dual nature. We can see that the situation seems different in the Dynamica. Leibniz undertakes to invent some amphibious object. This object, amphibie, is a word, a Leibnizian word, useful or necessary to develop a new physical science. It's not only the phenomena nor the empirical suggestion which determine the invention of the physico-mathematical objects. It is appropriate to deploy mathematical demonstration and to register their power in creation of this kind of object. Mathieu Gibier, who sustained a thesis about the Dynamica, and this is so useful for me to present this text, this contribution. Mathieu Gibier writes, first, abstract dynamic teaches us nothing about the laws of nature. It allows us to construct possible quantities and mechanical laws, but without yet establishing any real causal relationship. But on the other hand, it belongs to the concrete dynamic based on the metaphysical principle of causal equivalence, or another, to establish that the phenomenon must indeed obey such a law of motion, etc. Leibniz, therefore, systematically constructs possible quantities suggested at the beginning by phenomena. These magnitudes have names of physics, such as speed, moment, matter, action, power, etc. But they are mathematical. Before these mathematical objects become expressions of objects of the new physics, Dynamica Concreta, they cross all the stages of the clear intelligibility claimed by the mathematical sciences. It is a long and delicate procedure which requires many precautions. Thus, in order for an indivisible or a differential to become the expression of an instantaneous velocity, we must go back and work everything from the measurement of the uniform motion. An efficient analogy is not enough. This procedure is not only a matter of precaution, but most importantly, a matter of audacity and imagination. Indeed, this is consistent with the mathematical nature of this Dynamica Abstracta to apply or invent suitable operations for these mathematical magnitudes with physical names. This stage is remarkable. What can or what must we do from the simple, sensible magnitudes? We can certainly add them, multiply them, but also differentiate and integrate them. We can apply ductors or tractors. These operations generate numerous and complex quantities and theorems. These objects and theorems, for the most part of them, escape our ability for representation or observation. Leibniz does much more. He doesn't look for one mathematical expression characteristic of a physical given situation. He considers or invents types and species of mathematical expressions when the physical situation only requires one singular individual. The objects and theorems thus generated, invented, are put at the disposal of the physicist, who can take them as the physical procedures needed or can use it. Such use being made available only if the criteria for concrete realization are satisfied. For example, that the movement is not reduced as the time increases. One purpose of the dynamic abstracta is to obtain the a priori measure of the power of a moving body as mv squared. Leibniz invents a notion of formal action, which is itself the product of a formal effect invented by speed. The formal effect invented as a product of the mass by the distance covered. All this is rather arbitrary speculation, but of physical origin. It results from a choice of the magnitudes and the way to combine them. Do these possible combinations have a physical meaning? Nothing is less certain, but perhaps yes, since their constitutive ingredients are formal expressions of objects suggested by phenomena. Then in this case, they can do wonders in physics, whereas they are by nature mathematical operation on procedure. The infinitesimal calculus increases the possibilities and perspective. I say this formal and mathematical enlargement generates magnitudes, of which only a few will have physical existence. Concrete dynamics affected by additional principle, like that of causal equivalence, selects what is actually accomplished and at work in the sensible world. This is not the place to look in what way, a priori or not, this selection is made. It is made, and dynamica concreta is as such a physics. Two examples. Ductus and tractus. In definition 3, chapter 3, section 1 of DA, this definition explains that means produire une chose par ordre sur une autre, to produce one thing in order over another. This holds a great place, somewhat like a promising object, but that will not keep all its promises. Leibniz creates a generalized version of the ductus. He will use it throughout the chapters of movement. He names it tractus of a mobile. It is not drawn ex nihilo, and we know its antecedents in Viette, Grégoire de Saint-Vincent, and Pascal. Originally, in Leibniz, considering two series, it is a question of multiplying the terms of one by the term of the other, then of summing it up. If the series are replaced by two continuous magnitudes, the idea can be maintained by virtue of the integral calculus. The quantities applied or to be applied may be of dimension greater than 1 or 2 greater than 3. So this procedure gives a means of representation by figure all the quantities which enter into this science, right, GB. It is not nothing to justify so broadly the possibility of making the product of two quantities. You can see Appendix 6 for more explication. As I mentioned, an invented magnitude is the tractus of the mobile, the sum or product in order of all the displacement of each point of a weighted moving object by their specific gravity. For this, Leibniz draws 14 theorems and 14 theorems. This production of mathematical objects is almost endless. Consequently, many mathematical theorems can be imagined that some of few might well apply to phenomenal properties. In this text, we attend the activity of an overactive mathematical imagination in which are suggested combinations terribly varied, integral, vectors, rotation, projection. I have to cut, okay? The second section is devoted to movement. In dynamic abstracta, the quantities are freely mathematically conceived and then combined. We have series of theorems concerning functional relation between time, distance, speed, etc., whether the movements are performed in nature or not, whether real or not. In this science, it is not in this part of science, it is not discriminating. In the first section of the Dynamica, the intent is to establish the measure of the movement whose velocity varies either from one moment to another or from one point to another of the moving body, according to a combination of the two. It's therefore a study of the different movement. We know how Galileo studied this motion, starting from rest, such that speeds are proportional to times. We know that he has in view the actual movement as nature uses it. It is therefore understandable that for Galileo, the mathematical formalism is one side, and the concept of phenomenon or fall in the other side are identified, merged. Such is the physico-mathematical conception. Leibniz's work is profoundly different. In Dynamica Abstracta, he studies the generalized spectrum of different movement conceived via a coherent mathematical formalism. They can be accelerated or decelerated. They can start from rest or not. And above all, speeds can be proportional of the time or to the square of the time. More than that, the speeds could be proportional to the value of the space covered. Let's be systematic as Leibniz is. Three quantities are considered at the beginning: velocity, time, space. Then we can imagine three kinds of proportionality that associate velocity, time as three series of pair: velocity, space, space, time, and velocity times, and not only with various exponents for each of them. So it will be understood. Here we have nothing or almost nothing that is directly physical, but it is question of movement, abstract movement. We have a chapter of mathematics whose starting quantities are candidates to receive a physical sense, and thus whose development the demonstrated effect may perhaps correspond to and express phenomena or not. Let's look at the definition 1 and 2 of this chapter, as you have seen here. Definition 1. A movement is uniformly accelerated, etc., according to time. And definition 2, exactly the same with a small difference. It's according to the space, okay? Let's make no mistake. This second definition does not extend or continue the sterile attempts of Galileo in 1604 or Descartes from 1619 to 1640. Both of them have chosen this way, studying the movement of falling bodies, physics. The second Leibnizian definition is a mathematical object. Is a mathematical object. So it's not a chapter of physics. Without using this definition 2, Leibniz engaged a series of generalization when space or velocity are given as a function of time. As this place of the text, and in the following pages, we systematically classify the case underlines the impossible ones. We have a tableau with a series of possibilities according to the power of time or space or velocity. Moreover, the reason why there are empty boxes in this table is that in this case, the number in exponent becomes smaller than O, etc. It follows that at the beginning or at the first movement, a motion as time is infinitely small. The velocity must be infinite, which certainly cannot be admitted. We have here a very interesting system in which mathematical manipulation of a priori quantities considered as physical ones, speed, time, space travel, are susceptible to mathematical development, which have no physical meaning. It is basically the ruin of the idea of an autonomous field where mathematics and physics would be unified, and the symptom of a rather rigorous limitation of the possible use of mathematics in physics. And after the dynamic abstracta, which affirm nothing about things as they actually do, Leibniz developed another science that deals with the actual movement in the world. So I have to cut maybe 5 minutes, okay. Okay, Leibniz introduced in this second part other object or principle to build this physics, that it is concrete dynamic. The same power is needed for raise two weights at given age when the weights are reciprocally like the age. For instance, concrete objects and devices are considered elastic, stretch, etc., release water, etc. So we are in physics. We remember the collection of possible movement formalized in the dynamic abstracta. Now, using an important example, we come to physics, to this phenomenon such as nature uses it. Because of the general principle of dynamic abstracta, and because plus the equivalence between full cause and entire effect, powers are like the square of velocity, and powers are like age. So, in this world, in physics, the four distances are like the square of the speeds. Mathematics then, in this case, comes into play very briefly and efficiently. The result is that the motion is uniformly accelerated. See Appendix 8. All this, second, according to me, is clear. First, there are great difficulties and possible controversies as the establishment of the principle, hypothesis, and empirical data that constitute a problem of physics. Second step, it could be controversial to choose and organize the mathematical objects and operations involved in the formalization of the problem. Third step or stage. But once this is done, mathematics contributes automatically to the development of theory. This contribution being provided by mathematical tools, a small part of which is used to achieve the physical question. Nevertheless, where the adequate mathematical expression is found, if it is, the recovery of the two sciences, mathematics, physics, is harmonious, and mathematics apply remarkably to physics. We can see that in many cases, in Leibniz's conclusion of 2 minutes, a question arises: why did this mathematical physics not have the Newtonian success? To this, there is certainly many reasons, the principle of which could be said to be, I don't know if it's correct in English, could be grasp all, lose all. Leibniz unfolds a vast field of mathematical possibilities to the new physics. He suggests putting all the mathematical tools at the service of the science of nature. He imagines that the variable may not be only time, that the dimensions useful for analyzing a phenomenon are well beyond 3 or 4, and so on. But in this generalization of means, mathematical means, he neglects two which are decisive: the acceleration and the vector nature of speed and its derivatives. Controversially, Newton concentrated the association of mathematics and new physics. It forces the mobilized mathematical forms to be, from the first, expression of physical things. To this general reason, it must also be added that Leibniz's treatise is not published, perhaps because it doesn't satisfy its author. But this work and the attempt it represents to associate the two natures has made me a little more convinced that physico-mathematical objects cannot exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I say thank you, and I like it very much. What you said about the Principia, to put the question, Principia mathematics, I think this is it's a very real question in the sense that the question was posed already by them.
Yeah.
Huygens was saying, this is mathematics. I cannot understand why this guy who is clever, say, meaning Newton, I don't understand why this guy is spending so many time developing mathematics upon a very absurd hypothesis. And so for decades it was taken to be an exercise in mathematics. Rather than physics. The physics would be to find a cause for gravity. And so the question is, I don't know, I think it's clear that they, at that time, in the last 2 decades of Leibniz's life, after he read the Principia, and he was kind of quarreling with philosophically, physically. I don't know if this different notion of what physics is has a bearing. It has something to do with physics.
Yes, the question, maybe Huygens or maybe others say, maybe Newton say, that's a book of mathematics. But my question, why not? Okay, when I read, I can more. The point is it also a treatise of physics? Is it the box? That's the question. And it's my point. My point is a naive point. I have very conscience of that, because of course, I hope you understand that I have not to underestimate the relation built between mathematics and physics, of course, okay? But it's maybe a question, naive question of maybe philosophical one. It's the nature of the things. As I am young, I learned that there is sciences with very different, various branches, which is mathematics, geometry, algebra, applied mathematics, etc. Okay. And I heard that it is science, very, very physics. And I think there are essential differences. Just what I am interested in is to search traces, arguments to understand or to know if this difference of nature has evaporated, as a lot of very major authors seems to think it, especially in the 17th, 19th, 18th century, and we can quite easily understand why it happened in the 17th and 18th, because that's wonderful. They are in Disneyland, you know. With the physics and mathematics, they can do everything. So that's a new world, physico-mathematical. But maybe there are ancient arguments and maybe modern arguments telling, no, it's confusing because it's a success. Of course, this association is very successful, but the nature of the things are different, continues to be different. In the CNRS in France, there are sections of mathematics, very different, there are sections of physics. That's an argument, it would be maybe debile, very weak, but it's fine.
So first, then John.
I really like to talk. I just have one question, I think. I don't know if I didn't understand it, perhaps you didn't say. When you showed us the quote of Davis and Hirsch,
Oui.
did you take a position in it? Do you agree with it?
But good question. I don't know, because I imagine not. Because why? Because just my naive question, behind this question, it is, maybe we can say, okay, give us answer about ontological, answer about the ontology of mathematics, or maybe ontology of physics, I don't know, okay. I have not, I'm not sure. Just what I suggest is that even if we are not very clear about this answer, ontological answer, we can be attentive, be careful about this difference of essence. Just, is there another question? Or, no, just I wanted to add just something. I have not a solution for even for me to understand all that. Just an analogy. An analogy, we know it's good. Not. An analogy could help maybe for me to imagine that kind of association, because there is a deep association in math and physics, and maybe math now, we discuss math and biology. And this analogy is that of symbiosis. In symbiosis, you have an organization, you have an organism you can consider as itself. You have two different species which are associated to make it alive. This association is necessary not only for the symbiotic organism remains alive, but for both of the two species too. And nevertheless, these two remain essentially different. That's, I don't know if it's an answer, it's an analogy, just to help me. Because it's just another, this kind of suggestion, it's maybe 2-3 years ago, reading the book of Villani, Cédric Villani. Cédric Villani, his book, The Theorem, about his discovery of okay. Reading this book, I see that Villani, which is a great mathematician, in some pages, didn't know if he was making maths or making physics. For me, it was that's like Archimedes.
Well, thank you for this very nice, fascinating exegesis of Leibniz. But I'm a little confused about the conclusion. Perhaps there is something I don't understand. If I read the conclusions of there, it looks like though we first regard in physics hypotheses, principles, and empirical data, and all this will be formulated in qualitative ways. Then comes mathematics 2, 3, 4. But well, physics as it has existed for almost 4 centuries, 3 centuries. Well, these principles and hypotheses, for instance, do they not consist most often in a relation between magnitude? And then, if this is the case, mathematics is what we there from the beginning. But for instance, if you speak of a quantity of movement over the, well, can you understand this without some minimal math?
Yeah. That's a point. No. That's a difficulty. But that could be, for this example, I think that the quantity of my answer would be no. We can't. We cannot consider. We are obliged to consider that with maths, involving maths. Okay, because it's a very, maybe we can say simple, but it's a formal association, the quantity of movement. The problem is, the very interesting problem is with speed. Speed is a very, maybe there are others, for example, the speed remains difficult, apparently simple but difficult. Can we consider to have the idea of speed without maths? I think yes. But it's not our concept of speed. Of course, it's not. But it's real. You know, I think there are. Yes, there are. It is my point of view. It's possible to consider a physics without math. No more, not now. But for me, the Aristotle treatise is a treatise of physics. Descartes' Principia, the principle of philosophy, the part 3 or 4. For me, it's physics. Oh, we can't do physics like that, okay? But it's physics. It is okay. But this question is certainly difficult.
One minute so that Marina can ask a question too.
Very quick. Marina, go.
Oh, Carlos. No. I mean.
For the little that I know of history of science and mathematics, it seems to me that the mathematization of science goes end by end with a progressive independence of pure mathematics from its applications. So I mean, I didn't understand the need to start with the hypothesis of some physical mathematical object, an ontology of physical mathematical objects, because on the contrary, it seems to me that to use mathematics in science, you need that your ontology of mathematics. Your mathematics is completely independent of physics.
So
that you can
if I understand well, you think that the double nature, this physical mathematical object exists. You think so? I contest that.
I agree with you.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that I really don't see the need of this.
The need, yes.
It seems to me that
the need, it's because of Galilei, because of Newton, because of many of the young physicists today. You know, you can, the young or not young physicists, they think they are mathematics and physics, the same nature. It's because of that. Maybe we can say, as you, that it's not we know as philosophers, or I don't know as what, we know that they are nature different, and that's not a problem. Maybe, but in the history, main authors, very famous authors, and active, considered in a different way. That's why. No, Jean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now have a commentary by Carlos.
Oh yes, merde. Allez, moi aussi après. Merde. Et on reste...